So a few years ago, a Swiss retailer decided to forego upgrading the coffee machines at one of their offices, and instead use the money they saved to supplement their budget for shopping bags. They were now able to purchase shopping bags that were sustainably and ethically produced. The bags, in fact, were made by hundreds of rural women across many villages, including the women in this picture. These women were now part of global supply chains. Poor rural women tend to have only 3 grim options available to them. The first option is to stay in poverty. They just stay where they are. The second option is to escape the village, escape the rural poverty through human trafficking networks. And the third option is to work in sweatshops. Sweatshops such as this one, the Rana Plaza sweatshop in Bangladesh, that collapsed last year, killing over 1,100 people. But now, there's a fourth option, a better option, an option that draws rural women into global supply networks and makes those supply chains, gives them a sense of transparency, and gives them integrity. So I started thinking about the possibility of drawing rural women into global supply chains when I moved to South Africa in 1998. I was there to study rural women and what kinds of resources they used and what kinds of support they needed to escape poverty. And I followed it up with subsequent study of women in Nigeria, in Egypt, Indonesia, Nepal, and India. And what I found was that rural women had 3 issues that they had to grapple with, at the very least. The first issue was they lacked marketable skills. They weren't able to compete in any sense of the term with any market. The second problem they had was they lacked information. They didn't know what they should be producing, what services they could be offering, and so on. The third problem they had no access to wider markets. So the only thing rural women could do, poor rural women could do, was to produce products and offer services to other people in the village who were as poor as them. Well, all of this led me to start thinking about how we might create an ecosystem that would help women escape poverty. The ecosystem had 3 parts. The first part was, it was a network of rural workspaces. Workspaces where women could come, could gain skills. They could understand what they had to produce, understand how they had to produce products. They could get orders for those products, and of course, they could get business support. And third, this ecosystem would really be a social community, a global social community, if you like, one that brings together retailers, entrepreneurs, rural women, of course, volunteers and professionals, and brings them all and is driven by the spirit of Ubuntu. Ubuntu being the Southern African philosophical term that means I am because we are. Well, the project has been successful, and the women have been producing many fabulous products, quality products in large volumes for global buyers, such as garments, accessories, and bags. And what the women have learned has been amazing. They've learned and gained skills, amazing skills. So where they once started out with no marketable skills, they now are accomplished seamstresses. But it's been a long challenge, of course. So when the women first came for their first sewing class, they sat on a stool at the sewing table, and they got really anxious. And we thought they'd be anxious by the technical aspects of the sewing machine. But it turns out what they were really anxious about was adopting what they saw as a posture of authority, a posture of sitting on a stool at a table. They had seen bureaucrats do this. They'd seen rich landlords do this. They'd never seen poor farm workers, let alone women farm workers, sit in a posture of authority. And it took time for them to adjust to this, almost a week or more. But they have improved. They've gained skills, and many of them now want to use the computer. They've learned how to use a computer. They've sent email to each other in the ecosystem to learn how to understand where the production systems are and what the status of different orders is, and so on. What's been even more remarkable is that the women have become financially empowered. So when they first joined us, they resisted the idea of having bank accounts. And they told us, we don't want to be paid through our bank accounts, just give us cash. And their argument was, if we have cash, We can hide it in our kitchen jars. And we said, why do you want to do that? And they said, well, because then our husband won't see the bank statement lying around, and he won't demand that we give him the money. So this is easy. We can hide the money in kitchen jars and rice bins. But they've become accomplished. Now they have savings accounts, and many of them have bought land and built homes. And what's truly remarkable and truly revolutionary is that they've registered these homes in their sole names. And this is unheard of in most of those villages. Well, we started in 2009 with 25 women in one community, and we had about 125 beneficiaries. Today, we have about 5,000 women across 30 communities, across 4 countries, India, South Africa, Indonesia, and Uganda, and about 25,000 beneficiaries. And we hope to have 200,000 women in the community and about 1 million beneficiaries. Now, we've had resistance along the way. For starters, husbands were rather resistant. They weren't sure what this was all about. They didn't want the women to start changing and for those households to become complicated and so on. And they resisted. They weren't very happy. But in time, as the husbands have understood, as the orders have come in and the husbands have understood that the women are actually happier. They're making new products, the income, the family income has gone up, the children are happier. And what's really funny and interesting is that the husbands now come to us and say, we'd like to be part of the ecosystem too. How can we help? Communities were resistant in the beginning. So all the traditional local resentments percolated up and complicated production deadlines initially. But over time, the women have learned that as orders are coming in, there's more work to be done, more money to be made, and they better just accommodate each other and cooperate and just get the work done. Now, no one woman could handle producing 1,000 bags a week, but 100 women in the village coming together can. So we've created an ecosystem that through accommodation supports entrepreneurship. And not only are husbands accommodating and wives accommodating and neighbors and communities becoming more accommodating, but global companies have become more accommodating, just like the Swiss company I mentioned initially. But to really reach millions of women and help them escape dire poverty, entrenched poverty, we really need many more companies to join. And it's really not that complicated, as the Swiss company has shown. They've shown us that they've managed to easily accommodate the higher cost of sustainable and ethical products in their budget. And I'm assuming that their employees are nicely and appropriately caffeinated in these years. Well, what we need is CEOs to take the lead, CEOs to push and make sure that supply chains and supply networks globally are sustainable, that they have integrity, that they have transparency. We need investors to worry about supply chain integrity when they pick stocks. And we need consumers to push their retailers and their hotels to use sustainable and ethical products. Well, rural women are ready to produce more than 1 million millions of bags a day if need be. We need all of us to come together, be driven by the spirit of Ubuntu, and help them all escape poverty.